Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Civil Justice Subcommittee for February the 26th, 2025. Madam Clerk, take the roll.
Mr. Chairman, you have 7 members present. You have a quorum.
Thank you, members. We do have a quorum. Do we have any personal orders before we start this morning or this afternoon? Seeing none, we'll go over the calendar real quick. Members, item number 2, without objection, House Bill 4, road 1 week. Item number 3, House Joint Resolution 53. Members, we got 11 firearms bills that we're going to put on special calendar of March the 26th without objection. That brings us back to item number 1, House Joint Resolution 100 by Leader Faison, Chairman Faison. We have a motion and a second, and Chairman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Committee. It is so good to be with you today. This urgent resolution I'm bringing to you, actually, I come to you with a bit of a heavy heart. Mental illness and substance abuse is something near and dear to me. I dare say that everybody sitting here today doesn't know somebody who's overdosed. It has impacted our family, our friends. It is for a lack of a better way to put it, it's a stain on our society. And for me, if we claim to be pro-life, we should be pro-life throughout a human's life. And I looked, and through my research indicates that Tennessee is number 3 in states for opioid and fentanyl overdoses. When I think of my state, and we're often called the Bible Belt, I wonder how in the world did we get to number 3? And we're number 3 because of DC and West Virginia. That's embarrassing that we're that high out of 50 states, and DC and West Virginia has a few more per capita overdoses than we do. I've started to think, evidently we're doing something wrong. And we have a thing called the Opioid Abatement Council. And I'll just take a brief minute to remind y'all what the opioid abatement is. If you remember years ago, Purdue Pharma was sued in a class action lawsuit, just over 40 states joined in. And during the lawsuit, we find out that they had absolutely been negligent. They had pushed on the Americans fraudulently, if you will, drugs that were not safe at all. And what we found since then, and since this all started, is this isn't just the person that we see down the street in the alley that's a junkie. What we found is this impacts people who, for otherwise, were really good people. I think of a young man who was the football captain his senior year in high school, broke his knee, lost his chances of having a scholarship because he had to have a major surgery and reconstruction. And after the surgery, he gets depressed, and they put him on something to help him with his pain and his depression. And he realizes that it numbs both the mental and the physical pain. And after that prescription runs out, he's addicted. Not because he was a bad person, not necessarily because he made a bad choice, because somebody who he trusted gave him a substance that he found himself caught in. And you fast forward a few years later, and he has become a drug addict. I feel like it's incumbent on us as a state to say, what can we do? Through that lawsuit that we sued Purdue and several others, Tennessee was awarded $1.2 billion that's going to get paid out over an 18-year period. Last year, we were given $81 million to help with us rejuvenate and reclaim, help people who are addicted. I believe, it is my assessment, that part of that money should go to Narcan. Research studies show and indicate that if a person can make it to their 40s and not die in their addiction, amazingly, they finally will get help and they get over their addictions. It has happened all around the world, not just in America, not just in Tennessee, but people think make it to their 40s. I would like to see us use 25% of the opioid abatement money that we have charge over in this state to go to Narcan. Right now, we live in a world that is almost kind of a jaded thought. If you're a drug addict or if you have to use Narcan, I'd like to see us get to a point that we have Narcan every single place that we can find in America, in Tennessee, whether it's a church or whether it's here at the legislature, whether it's at Walgreens, whether anywhere we can get this. I believe that there are people who otherwise are decent people, but they're trapped in an addiction that they can't get out of. And if we can get them the proper help, I feel like we can save their lives and do better. I know some of you are wondering, say, what are we spending right now on the opioid abatement money on Narcan? I'm glad you asked me. We're spending somewhere between 6 and 8% on that. I feel like we could save a lot more lives if we spent more like 25%. I brought with me today, and he's on the schedule, Mr. Chairman, my friend George Massengill. He is in this space. He is a provider for people with mental health and substance abuse. And you're going to find out that 37 years ago, he was one of such people who was completely addicted to drugs. The Lord brought him out of that. And now he turns back and gives his life, dedicates his life in this space to helping fellow Tennesseans who are caught in that. And I wanted y'all to just give him a few minutes to kind of tell you his story and let y'all know why he supports this urgent resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And without objection, members, we'll go out of session and hear from Mr. Massengill. And Mr. Massengill, if you will just say who you are and who you represent and tell us a little bit about yourself, and you'll have 3 minutes, and then we'll let you know we'll take questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for allowing me to speak today. My name is George Massengill, and I am someone in long-term recovery, thankfully, 37 years, February the 2nd. And I'm extremely thankful for that and have been working in the treatment field for that long. I represent a company now, a not-for-profit called Reach United, and we have a national campaign, a national platform to bend the overdose curve a little bit. Right now, we still have about 100,000 people a year dying across the country from fentanyl overdose. We have in the state of Tennessee 11 a day. The latest stats are, and what we believe, without a doubt, that Representative Faison is saying very accurately, is the first thing we need to do is flood the market. Some states have done that, flood the entire state with naloxone, Narcan, overdose reversal drugs, and put enough out there that everybody has access to it, as well as reduce the stigma. We just launched a campaign in Fentress County, actually last week, that news media covered here with Jeffrey Simmons with the Titans, and put up some billboards with him on there. We believe that by getting the public more well known about naloxone and to have that with them, that can save lives. We know that that's the only thing, if someone is falling over, dying from a fentanyl overdose, the only thing that will help is naloxone, is Narcan or naloxone, which is a brand name. So I believe absolutely 100% in what Representative Faison is saying. We don't have enough in the state. That doesn't mean anybody has done anything wrong at all. They haven't. We have some good programs going on, but we have a lot of money in the opioid abatement fund today. And we just feel like that putting more of that money toward a public initiative to put vending machines out, to put naloxone where defibrillators are, to where fire extinguishers are, have billboards with folks on there saying, hey, I carry naloxone, do you? Will save lives in the state of Tennessee.
Thank you. And members, do we have any questions for Mr. Massengill, Representative Johnson?
Yes, I really appreciate this. I do think it should be available so that it's wherever it's in need. I'm curious about the 25%. How was that calculated? Or should I ask the bill sponsor that question? Is that something that you have?
Well, it really isn't a scientific number. Okay. It is today. We're putting about 8% out, and we probably have 1/3 to 1/4.
Okay.
Just by asking all of the different representatives across the state what is needed, so that we just kind of put that number at 25% until the death rate drops 25% in the year 25. So it's just an initiative that we think a lot of states should take, but especially Tennessee, because we're so high ranked right now.
Representative
Yes, ma'am.
Johnson, and you're free to go back and forth.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so I guess one thing that I would like to see is a lot more put into prevention. I'd like to see us not get to the point where we need the Narcan.
Yes.
And I think that 25 seems high. I'm going to support this, but again, I hope we're thinking of gearing much of this to prevention so that we don't get to the point where we need that Narcan. But I understand that we definitely do.
Yes, ma'am. I would say that the idea is to flood right now. You know, we have 18 years of funding, 17 years now. But if we flood now, the 25%, that's probably not ongoing every year. Then I agree. It's almost like you have a plane crash and we have 100 people that need an emergency room. We have one hospital. We don't have enough. And I think once we get past this initial, 11 people dying a day in Tennessee, 100,000 a year in the U.S., then I'm 100% with you. I think we need to devote a lot to prevention. I think right now, if we can just save the lives, the next year, we go that direction.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. And Representative Davis, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for being here today. I really appreciate it. I think what's important too is that for a lot of people to understand what Narcan is, that it's just like a nasal spray, and that because a lot of times people aren't familiar with these things, and so they don't know if it's safe or hard to administer. So it's not. And if someone gets into it that's not in some sort of crisis, it's not going to harm that individual either. So can you kind of speak to that, just to make sure that people in the community are kind of aware of what we're asking them to be able to have access to and what they may need to do in an emergent situation? Thank you,
Yes,
sir.
ma'am. Thank you. You're 100% correct. It's a very simple medication to use. It's a nasal spray, squirt it in your nose, and somebody falls over, they're unresponsive. Most of the time, I'm not a physician, but someone dies from respiratory failure, usually with fentanyl, because it shuts down the respiratory system. That opens that back up and knocks that off the receptors. And it is not harmful for somebody to get that. I mean, it's not a medication that somebody can abuse in any way or use in a harmful way.
Since just like AEDs, which I think are incredibly important, I understand what you're saying. This is important as well. And we just want to make sure that children, that they're not accessing it, that it actually is in a way that people can respond to in an emergent situation when they recognize kind of those signs and symptoms of what's happening, and be able to assist and help. Because a lot of times so many people want to, but they're unclear of what to do in kind of those times of crisis. So thank you for this. I really appreciate it. I appreciate the work that you do for the Opioid Abatement Council.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am. And I would say to what you're saying is public awareness is probably one of the biggest issues. And just not to run out of too much time, but even in public perception, I'll give you an example of this. When we launched this in Fentress County, had Jeffrey Simmons of the Titans, we had a lot of really great people behind this. We put a really nice photo shoot together for a billboard. And I called someone, I actually knew him, and said, can we put this on one of your billboards in Fentress County? And he said, no, we don't want anything to do with that. We think that's a bad drug. And I'm like we didn't argue, but the point is to your point, it's very, very, very good, is one of the big issues is most people don't really understand it. And it is a life-saving medication. I'm not going to ask for hands who has it with them today or in their car, but most people don't, because you would think, well, why would I carry that? But today, when we know 11 people are dying in this state, we could easily pull up to a convenient market and somebody laying in front of our car, unconscious, not breathing. And it's like my friend Ryan King says, anybody can be a hero today. If I have that with me, take that out, squirt it in their nose, they're back alive. They come back from the dead. So thank you for saying that.
Members, I do not see any other questions, so I got a question. Is the only way to administer Narcan is by the nasal? There is
A shot you can take, but it's not really what everybody uses today. The nasal administration is really the way that most of it is administered today.
And what is the recovery time once the Narcan is administered in the nasal?
Matter of seconds.
Is there any lasting effects?
Meaning of the medication?
Yes, sir.
No, not really. I mean, the only thing today, fentanyl is so strong, sometimes you have to administer 2 doses. That 1 dose will knock, the stuff off the receptors, but it's not enough because of what's called the half-life of fentanyl so strong. But once the naloxone is in your system, there's nothing else it really does. There's not an effect to that, so to speak.
Well, thank you. And I don't see any other questions, and we appreciate you coming today. You're not only making yourself better, but you're making a difference in these lives that you're saving, and I appreciate your initiative.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Chairman. Thank you.
Members, without objection, we'll go back in session. And Chairman Faison, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, I would add one more thing to you. Unfortunately, in Tennessee, we're not just getting it right there. I feel like we're not getting it right other places. There's around 10 to 11 people who present today at some medical facility saying, I'm an addict and I need help. And unfortunately, only 5 of them will be seen out of the 11. That's something that I've researched and found out recently that we need to do a better job. If you raise your hand and say, I need help, and then our providers right now say, we'll put you on a wait limit. It might be 3 weeks, it might be a month, and we'll get back to you. When an addict raises their hand and say, I need help, because they don't have 3 days. They don't have 3 weeks. They don't have a month. We need to be better and make sure that there's some beds available for them when they ask for help.
Thank you. Members, do we have any questions for Chairman Faison? Seeing none, Representative Johnson, you're recognized.
Just a quick statement, but when people have access to health care, they have access to mental health care. Medicaid expansion would help make sure that they had that.
Any follow-up? Question has been called. Members, we're voting on House Joint Resolution 100 to send it to full judiciary. At this time, the clerk will open the vote. Those in favor of House Joint Resolution 100, press yes on the board, and those opposed, press no. As all members voted, does any member wish to change their vote? Madam Clerk, take the vote.
Mr. Chairman, you have 7 ayes, 0 noes.
All right, members. Ayes prevail. Brings us to, it goes to judiciary. Members, we're going to take a 2-minute recess without objection. All right, members, we're back in session. It brings us to item number 4, House Bill 216. Do I have a motion? Motion. We got a motion. Do I have a second? We got a second, and Representative Rudd, you're recognized on House Bill 216, and I do not show any amendments.
Well, this is not always nice to have what is usually a bipartisan bill. As you recall, last year we passed the Residential No Squatting Act. We couldn't fit commercial into the code. The bill is identical this time, except it applies to commercial. What this deals with, there's already trespassing laws. What this deals with is not homeless or anyone like that. It's dealing with people that are basically moving into the business without paying for it and claiming it to be theirs. Right now, it can take up to a year or more and cost tens of thousands of dollars for the property owner to get them out. This would expedite this up to as little as 72 hours. What they do is file the complaint under the punishment of perjury that they do not have a lease, they are not partners, they never had an agreement with the owner. If they didn't, they would testify that and sign that. Then the sheriff would call the Register of Deeds office, verify who the current owner is, and then they could proceed to go ahead and extract them from the property so that the property owner can lease it, remodel it, or do whatever he needs to do with it. And that's the presence of the bill. It's like the residential bill we had last year.
Thank you for that explanation. Members, we're getting questions for Representative Rudd and Representative Johnson. You're recognized.
Just kind of boggles my mind. It's pretty brazen. I mean, I understand how it happens in residential situations, but there are actual situations in Tennessee of this happening in commercial areas. People coming in as if they're fine to bring themselves and whatever their business is into a facility with absolutely no permission. This is happening.
Yes, it's actually some people, if it's a small, like a storefront or something, or a small, they actually move into it to live. And the problem is if the sheriff shows up and says, no, I'm renting from them, I have a contract with them, and they don't, the sheriff can't make a decision. So he says, I can't get involved, so it has to go to court. And if they continue and continue and continue, then some people, if it's a vacant warehouse, especially smaller facilities, they just start moving stuff in and storing it. Say, no, I have a lease there. They change the locks. The property owner can't even get in. So this would take care of that situation. Now, as far as trespassing, now we already have trespassing laws for homeless or vagrants or anything like that, drugs and all that. But this would certainly expedite it if they were claiming to be legally there.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Representative Farmer? Did I hear you call the question?
Yeah, I was going to call for the question, Mr. Chair.
Oh, I thought you did.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't have your
That's the kind of
microphone.
question I want.
I didn't have your microphone on yet. Sorry.
Mr. Chairman, I'm still getting used to this red light right here.
I understand.
So I was kind of waiting on it there, but question on the bill.
All right. Members, the question's been called on House Bill 216. At this time, the clerk will open the vote. All those in favor of sending House Bill 216 to full judiciary, press yes on the keypad. Those opposed, press no. Has all members voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Madam Clerk, takes a vote.
Mr. Chairman, you have 8 ayes, 0 noes.
The ayes prevail. Full judiciary. Congratulations. That brings us to,
But I just want to say thank you to everyone. I've had a lot of trauma in this room. It's nice to come out with a smile.
Thank you. Members, that brings us to item number 5, and I neglected to mention that it's rode 2 weeks without objection. Item number 6, House Bill 1038, but we got a motion and a second, and Representative Garrett, you're recognized, and I do not show any amendments.
That's right, Mr. Chairman.
Would you like to tell us about it, or would you like us to go out of session first to hear from the witnesses?
I can tell you about it, and I think if it's necessary, if we got some questions I may not be able to answer, the administrative officer, of course, are here, and I'll be glad to do that. If
That would be
committee
very good if you'll do that.
All right. Thank you. House Bill 1038 is sort of the piggyback. I believe last session, the legislature allocated $75 million for us to have an integrated court system where we can collect the data across the state in sort of one system. This is the same type legislation that applies to our juvenile courts. And so we want to have the data so we can provide and have consistent real-time data in our juvenile courts so we can see what type of, things are happening. What are kids going to court for? Why are they delinquent? What type of you don't really commit a crime in juvenile court, but what makes them unruly, et cetera. We don't have any ability for our juvenile courts to talk to each other. The AOC is currently here. They've done great work to integrate that process. It's certainly not something that's going to happen overnight, and it's certainly not something that's going to happen that we may have some clerks that may be a little hesitant just because it's new programming, et cetera, that they're going to have to transfer to. This bill includes a $1.5 million recurring expense to assist the cost of that for hopefully some of the juvenile court clerks will be able to provide that support to transfer over to the new system. But I believe that this is an effort that actually goes back to Governor Haslam for an effort to unify the data in our courts so we can have a clear idea of what crimes are being committed. And so this legislation just further implements that transition, Mr. Chairman. And with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you. And first up is Representative Davis. I got you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to let you know, sponsor, that I've heard from our juvenile court judge that they use this in Knox County and they appreciate it and they're supportive of your legislation.
Thank you for that.
Representative Johnson, you're next.
Yeah, and you probably can answer this, but because I
Okay.
talked with the AOC folks and I didn't think of this at the time. But so we're talking about putting everybody on the same system, which certainly seems like a good idea. Are we sure that the system is secure? It's not less secure because more people have access to it? And I want to make sure that juvenile data is secure. And another question would be, are there firewalls in place so that this information can't be accessed by the adult court system or anything like that?
Representative Garrett.
Yes, I don't have any reservations at all to say that the data is going to be secure for the programs that are already in. There's probably, I can't say the exact counties that already use the programs that we're transferring to, but there are dozens, right? And then there's 30 or so counties that already use it. So I don't believe the AOC, and I certainly wouldn't want any of the data to be used in a way that it's not being used right now. This is just simply for us to be able to collect the data so we know what's happening in Clay County and then what's going to be happening in, Cumberland County, right? We have no idea right now because those two processes cannot talk to each other.
And so you're not aware currently of any data breaches or anything like that? Okay.
Yes, that's right.
Thank you.
Good question. I appreciate that question.
Representative Todd.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I just want to applaud you for bringing this bill. I've heard from my juvenile court judge, and they are elated that we are doing this. They need this tool to be able to know a given individual's background across the state, not just in their county. We have this system currently in our county, works very well, and they are very anxious to get this across the state. So thank you for bringing this.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. I don't have anybody else on the list. I just want to clarify that there is going to be some sort of training and financial help to our county court clerks. Is that right?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I mean that financial is recurring $1.5 million to assist in this transition cost. And as it's currently going on, there will be available training to make sure they know how the systems can integrate, make sure they can input it correctly, et cetera. So that there will be no doubt some growing pains as we do this, but there's going to be that availability training to help assist with that.
Sounds great. And Chairman Farmer, you're
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And I think it's a great bill. I want to thank the sponsor for bringing it. I want to thank the AOC for all the hard work that they put into it. And I want to thank all our clerk's offices already implemented it. I just think we need to go further with it. I'd like to see it go to the full-blown state court system with the circuit courts as well at some point in time. But this is certainly, I'd say we're moving in the right direction here. So thank you for bringing this piece of legislation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And seeing no other questions, we are now opening the vote. All those in favor of sending House Bill 1038 to Judiciary full, press yes on the keypad. And those opposed, press no. Has all members voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Madam Clerk, takes a vote.
Mr. Chairman, you have 8 ayes, 0 noes.
The ayes prevail. Full judiciary. All right, members, without objection, we'll be adjourned.